Ladies and Gentlemen, liebe Damen, liebe Herren, mein Name ist Marion Bösker und ich begrüße Sie sehr herzlich im Literaturhaus München zu einem Abend voller Literatur, Poesie und Musik. Denn im Anfang war nicht das Wort, im Anfang war Musik, erst aus Musik entstand das Wort und so sind Bücher, so ist Literatur auch eine Art von Musik. In the beginning there was not the word. In the beginning there was first of all the music. The word only emerged from the music, and so books are written music in a way. That is the idea behind this special evening today, the African Book Festival, which is to be continued in April in Berlin, is taking place at the House of Literature in Munich. Kalaf Epalanga, der diesjährige Kurator des Festivals, rückt Angola ins Zentrum des Abends. Es geht um das lusophone Afrika, um brasilianische Verbindungen und auch um die portugiesische Sprache. Kalaf Epalanga invited artists, writers and musicians from the Portuguese-speaking area of Africa, and here especially on those with Angolan, Brazilian connections. We will listen to the writer and journalist José Eduardo Agualusa, the writer and filmmaker Ondjaki, the hip-hop artist Telma Tvon, and Tuyara Monteiro, writer and visual artist. Together they talk about their works, their musical inspiration, and their deep local roots. We will hear passages from their texts, live performed by Moses Leo and Martha Fessehatzion, and we will listen to the singer-songwriter and multi-instrumentalist Toti Samet. Ich möchte Danke sagen. I want to say thank you to the team of Intercontinental Berlin. The African Book Festival is one of your great projects. You are making all of this possible in a time when poetry and music are more important than ever. And I want to say thank you to Lusophonia München. Thank you for supporting us so well. Ich wünsche Ihnen allen einen fantastischen Abend. Please enjoy this evening. Enjoy the voices from the beginning. And I will hand over the stage to Kalaf Epalanga. Enjoy the evening.
Hello, hello. Welcome. My name is Kalaf Epalanga. I'm your host tonight. We will make a journey into the words and sounds of Angola. We select a few of our writers, people that we cherish and love dearly. And I hope you enjoy it. Our first guest is broadcasting not from Angola, but from Ilha de Mozambique.
Hello, it's a pleasure being here. My name is Ondjaki. I'm from Angola. I was born in Luanda, which is actually a city that usually shows up in some of my stories, some of my books. This book, it's called Transparent City in English, Os Transparentes em português. It's I usually think it's a story, it's a puzzle about Luanda. And because Luanda, it's also a puzzle of the whole country, Angola. So I think in a way, what this book tries to do is gather some pieces of a complex city, Luanda and Angola. We have a historical, I wouldn't say a complication, but it's a complex history process, the very demanding process internally, externally, to explain the city in terms of wars, history, slavery, whatever, and then up to the modern times. So it's a complex. It was a complex task for me to put together the pieces I want, and what I really wanted with this book is to talk about Luanda a little bit, even if it's a tiny blink. People used to say that after reading this book, some of them, they want to visit Luanda. Well, I think that's great. I don't think it's the same Luanda you will find here, because every week, every month, but every week, Luanda changes a lot. So yeah, I was just trying to show up a little bit of a real Luanda and a little bit of a Luanda that I imagine. You know, this book is a possibility of how would Luanda react to certain conditions in terms of oil, people, water, dancing, funerals, parties, and so on. In this piece, in this exactly piece, there is this couple dancing, and it's important. Music is very important in the whole building. The building has, I think, 6 or 7 floors, and if you go around them in the book, of course, you will find different sounds and different musics. You know, like in the first floor, you just listen to the water. There is lots of running water in a corridor, so there's water. You go up and you arrive to another floor and there is jazz, for example. In this particular piece, they were dancing. You know, he's reminding her, his girlfriend, his wife, of how he used to dance long time ago. So it's a scene with an actual dance in the present, and then he starts reminding himself and her. So it's a flashback of you know, the way he used to dance. This guy is a great dancer. You know, a few days ago I asked to a friend, do you like to dance? And he said, here in Luanda, he said, I like to dance. I don't like to watch other guys dancing. And I said, why? I love to watch other guys dancing because sometimes they dance better than I do. And that's the problem in Luanda. No one, I mean, everyone wants to be the best dancer. One of the best dancers of Luanda is this guy, Edu. So I think, you know, I try to picture him as a non-arrogant, you know, great talker, but he's a great dancer. I think other than maybe people's eyes, you know, the eyes, children, other than smells, I work a lot with smells, and pieces of movies, you know, not only real movies, the ones I see, but the one I picture or the ones I remember. Other than that, or within that, there is something that glues all those materials in my writing, and that is music. You know, I can totally see, I've done this exercise um, more than once, which is write a chapter or a scene or 2 pages with opera music, for example, not Oprah Winfrey, but opera as the opera music, and then switch it to rock, for example, Gothic rock, Portuguese band, Moonspell, Imploding Stars, something like that. And it goes another way, you know, it's different ways. So yes, usually for me, part of the process of writing, especially short stories, poetry, it's the it's not the music I choose, but it's the process before writing in terms of choosing, you know, and preparing the music to write. That's very, I cannot, you know, express how important it is. I can write in silence. I can write in a restaurant with people talking, but those two things, I transform them into music. You know, if everyone is talking and I have to write there, that for me is some sort of song. But if I can, especially jazz, you know, and I must say this, you know, whenever I put the Corn concert by Keith Jarrett, for example, or some pieces of players of kora, you know, kora, the strings instrument, jazz, Chet Baker, Nina Simone as well. But you know, it's very, it's the mood. You know, it puts me on a track, and I wait. So sometimes I think it's the thing I think I want to write, and the thing I think I want to hear, and I just wait there. And if it matches, for me, it's very comfortable to write under you know, under those moods. I think most probably the artist who was with me most times during writing, probably it's Chet Baker and Wim Mertens, a pianist from Brussels, I think. From yeah, so yeah, but it could be anything, but it's very important. Even when it's silent, it's music.
Transparent City from Ondjaki. Godmother, can I drink a little ice water? Take yourself a soft drink. I'm grateful for the help. Thanks, godmother. Little daddy served himself a soft drink and left, greeting Edu again and asking him if he needed help to walk. You think I'm old or something? Little daddy let a sad expression trickle into his crooked smile, having arrived in Luanda from the south. He'd spent years in a fruitless search for his mother's whereabouts. Respected in the building for his gifts of honesty and punctuality, both uncommon in people from Luanda, Little Daddy was an assiduous watcher of the television program Meeting Point, created precisely so that displaced Angolians could learn the location of people from whom they had been separated by the war. Little Daddy left in sadness, consoling himself with the taste of cold Coca-Cola, and joked, Boss Edu, that Coca-Cola made in Angola has a lot more punch. Edu hard at length, closed the door and made his way to the kitchen. Kids these days, when they tell you they want to help, they're just taking the piss out of the elders. Just because my privates are swelled up, does that mean I can't walk? Leave it, honey, Nganelusha says, was in a good mood and as she stirred the food. He just wanted to help. Little Daddy always serves others. Against the sound of national radio, which was playing a medley of Carlos Boriti's music. And in spite of his problems with his leg, Edu showed that he was still a potent stepper in the Luanda style. The couple smiled and danced. Edu led the passes of a hip-swaying kizomba in slow undulations without treading on the recently arrived fruit or brushing the plastic bag. Beneath the attentive, concerned gaze of Nganelusha, whose mouth was soon saturated with a smile of disbelief at the elder's moves. You think my Mbumbi's king? Now I'm living it adaptively. With this Mumbi, I'm inventing new steps. Don't you see I'm already swiveling my knee like a soccer star? Onwards and upwards. Nganelusha laughed. She let one of Edu's hands seize her waist. The other slid down to the vast contours of her ass. A hot sweat invaded the kitchen, and soft music went on, making the couple close their eyes without closing, losing track of the contours of their apartment. Don't you remember that fateful episode? Hey. Back when there was a curfew, parties were full of people who wanted to drink, eat, and dance, and it was literally prohibited because of the curfew to leave the party. Anybody who stayed midnight could return home only after 5:30 in the morning. The time when foreseeing the sunrise, sweetly exhausted bodies asked for a place to sit down, a last cold beer, a plate of muzongwe. It was normal in that time after the soup for a party that was winding down to heat up again, continuing for some people until 10 o'clock in the morning, and for the most insistent partygoers, it would be transformed into the so-called continuation, where the men would go off to buy fish or meat, potatoes, cassava meal, maniok, but above all, liquid sustenance, bottles, cans, or barrels of beer, so that around 2 in the afternoon, the pace would pick up again, and beneath the aroma of the woman's seasonings, in an afternoon that would stretch out into the new night. Our mandatory curfews. Edu smiled with closed eyes, remembering the final night when he made her his. Excuse me, young girl, young lady. What's your name? He approached Nelusha, crumbled white linen suit, open neck shirt, and a golden crucifix gleaming against the dark dampness of the skin. Nelusha, she smiled timid. Do you dance, Nelusha? He offered her his hands and his smile in a way that made the request more than irresistible. Hence, in the way in which the lady allowed the gent's body to draw close, began the interplay of corporal energies, the closeness of his mouth to her neck, the settling of one's hands on the other's body, the complicity of the smile and the steps that evolved with ever more intimate contact, legs that brushed against each other to see if it was possible, waist that revealed intentions. And Nelusha, without revealing herself, had already consented even before the culminating hint. But is it Nelusha with X or with CH? Why, boy? Nelusha drew back from his neck and asked in a serious voice, "Tell me, girl." "It's with CH. So, we're going to scratch out your name. Now, pay attention." Edu's challenge wasn't to write the name on the floor, an act of which he judged himself capable. Even with the challenge of it being with a CH, the issue was that the music might not give him time to accomplish the deed with the graceful nonchalance to which he aspired. Nelusha, looking back and forth between the floor and Edu's calm face, was visibly impressed. The man had mastered kizomba technique to the point of not touching other couples who danced nearby, having even avoided the icing of the cake that was spilled over the dance floor and the children who ran past. "If it's all right with you, we'll write the CH during the next song," Edu concluded when the song ended. "I don't know what to say," Nganalusha smiled, speaking the same sentence now in the kitchen that she said years before. "Then don't say anything," Edu joked, opening his eyes. Nganalusha gazed at the kitchen floor. The broom was intact, and even the fruit that had rolled out of the bags hadn't suffered any damage. "You're still a really good dancer." "We do what we can. The mumumbi gives the certain rhythms to the curves," Edu laughed.
Porque foste embora assim, sem nada dizer, sem tempo sequer para beijo. Como suportar agora tanta tristeza? Como acalmar essa ansiedade? Vivo no desejo de te ver e não te vejo. Esta realidade vai matar meu coração. A vida não para inevitável pelos caminhos do nada. Perdido em minha saudade, no desejo de te ver e não te vejo. Essa realidade vai matar meu coração. A vida não para inevitável pelos caminhos do nada. Perdido em minha saudade. Canção nostalgia, canção desespero. Em tudo que cria, hoje nada espero. Vivo em teu lugar a esperança do amanhã. Na flor que nascer, na criança que sorri. Eu estarei no som dos quiçanjos, nas cordas de uma viola, nos ritmos quentes de Angola. Eu estarei no som dos quiçanjos, nas cordas de uma viola, nos ritmos quentes de Angola. Foste embora assim, sem nada dizer, sem tempo sequer para beijo. Como suportar agora tanta tristeza? Como acalmar essa ansiedade? Vivo no desejo de te ver e não te vejo. Essa realidade vai matar meu coração. A vida não para inevitável pelos caminhos do nada. Perdida em minha saudade. Canção nostalgia, canção desespero. Em tudo que cria, hoje nada espero. Fica em teu lugar a esperança do amanhã. Na flor que nascer, na criança que sorri. Eu estarei nos sons dos quiçanjos, das cordas de uma viola, nos ritmos quentes de Angola. Eu estarei nos sons dos quiçanjos, nas cordas de uma viola, nos ritmos quentes de Angola. Jami, gongo jamie, kashala kubeka wami. Bashi jami, gongo jamie, kashala kubeka wami. Ngidi ala pianzambi, kashala kubeka wami. Aingana, gikwatelo hina mama. Aingana, gikwatelo ndawe. Aingana, gikwatelo hina mama. Aingana, gikwatelo ndawe. Gidi ala kila, gatambula ni korewe. Koreyu watu kwebi, mame wangi foneken. Maloya ye wanyalo, wazila mushamkana. Wangi tumi sakita die, wazila mushamkana. Aingana, gikwatelo ena mama. Aingana, gikwatelo nawe. Aingana, gikwatelo ena mama. Aingana, gikwatelo nawe.
Carlos Buriti. We just lost Carlos Buriti last year,
Yes.
so this is also a little homage. Thank you, Toti.
Thank you. Thank you.
We will continue with our next guest, a rapper turned a writer now.
Hello, my name is Telma. Tvon is the AKA, I mean, also known as Tvon. I'm Tvon because for as long as I know myself, I'm a rapper. And being a rapper, I needed a nickname, and people in the street, my friends, gave me the name Tvon. Tvon, it's like T with Von, like T is from Telma, and Von is from, right? It's normally people use that in Deutsch. I think it's Deutsch, and so I think it feels good to say that to you guys. That is linked to Deutsch. I was born in Angola, but I live in Portugal for more than 25 years. So I feel that all of my roots are in Angola, but I have a lot of connection with Portugal, of course. With more than 25 years living in Portugal, it's impossible for me to not say that I'm also Portuguese, right? I'm not just from Angola. I'm from Angola. I'm from Portugal also. Um, I like a lot at this moment of my life with 41, 40, yes, I don't even know my age. Oh my God. That's a good, with 40 years. I discovered that I like to walk a lot. So many times I get out of the work, and instead of going in the train or in the subway, I go walking in Lisbon. So I'm rediscovering Lisbon just by walking, not going in the in the train and in the subway. So that's a new characteristic that I find in myself right now. I like also to read a lot. I'm a people that likes to write, but likes to read a lot also. So my first and only book for now, the name of the book is Preto, muito português. In English, it's a black, very Portuguese. I decided to write this book because I was seeing that a lot of my friends they were born in Portugal, but because of the color of their skins, they didn't feel that they were able to say that openly I'm Portuguese. So I decided to write a story about this character, Bujura, and he's talking about all the situations that he finds in the Portuguese society that makes him feel less or more Portuguese. Depends on on the feeling of the reader also. And I think Bujura is very funny guy, and he represents a lot of the mentality of most of the Black people that I know in Portugal. And I put Bujura linked to rap because I felt that I need to give that part of me also, the rap hip hop culture. It was very important for me to do that. So the chapter that Bujura is talking about rap is talking about his experience with rap. It's linked not with Bujura but with his brother because it's his brother who gives him like the window, the open window for him to know rap. Bujura didn't understand very well why his brother loved so much rap, and the brother was explaining to him why and why. What was the link between the rappers from USA and the rappers from Portugal? And then in that chapter, I decided to talk about some Portuguese rappers also. I was talking about Chulage, that is it's a MC that is very important for all of the community, all of the African community in Portugal, and not just only the community, not just only for the Black community, but also everybody who wants to listen to rap that makes him think, you know, makes people think. I think everybody who wants to think a little bit when they listen to rap, they will, even that they don't agree with Shulaj, they're gonna say, "Oh, I understand what he's saying. Yeah, that's it. That he say makes sense to me. Yeah." And I think I name other rappers also, like NGA, Valette, Sam the Kid. I was talking about almost every rapper that I was growing with. Yes, that I have a relationship, and I decided to talk about that to make this. Eu esqueci da palavra. Sorry. This mention. Desculpa. To mention them. Sorry. I decided to mention them in this chapter and make this reference to rap that I think it's so important for many of us people who are growing up in Portugal and finding in rap as it's important for us to be finding in the music of our parents, but it's important too for us who lived always in Portugal most of the time to have a language that is our language, and the rap it's our language. You know, I think now that we are growing up, we are discovering the samba, the kizomba, but most of the time we are more in the time of the rebellion, you know, and the rebellion songs are rap. I see myself as an MC always. Now I'm not doing music, but I'm always writing. I really, really, really like to write. I don't mean like I'm doing a good job writing, but it's something that sometimes when I'm very stressed with something in work or even with my family, with relationships, friends, I'm not a person that talks about the problems, but I write the problems. And it's like even when I was a kid, I have a diary. I only stopped to write to write the diary because my cousins they found the diary and they started to read it, and I felt so ashamed that I decided to stop the writing. But I always write it everything. Every time I found a pen and a paper, I was writing. So at this time, I can honestly say that I'm writing songs that I don't know if I'm gonna ever sing the songs. Like for instance, this book it starts to be a song. I was writing this song that I imagined that I want to sing with two MCs. There was Shulaj and Lancelot, and the the verse became so big, so big, so big that I felt that I couldn't stop. And so when I saw it was like almost 20 pages of words. So I said, "Oh, I'm gonna just start going. Let's see what's gonna happen with this." And then becomes a book. And I was not believing that could be a book. My sister was the person who say, "Oh, this is a good material for a book. I think you should write it," because I think many of us don't believe in ourselves. We were like, "Oh, this is a story that nobody wants to read, right? Who wants to read about this black guy with identity issues? Nobody wants to know about that. We don't we think most of the time we don't believe people will say, oh, that's something that I would like to publish. No. But it was a big surprise for me because of that. Even at the time that I went to the launch of the book, were so many people there, friends and people that were just want to know what I was reading about. That I was like, oh my God, Bujuru. Yeah, everybody wants to know about Bujura. That's nice. So that also motivates me to continue to write. And now I feel that, okay, I'm a rapper, but I'm a rapper that likes to write, and maybe I'm a writer too. So I'm not taking this possibility. And what comes to my process writing, it's not like I'm always listening to music, but every time I write, I remember, it's funny, I remember a rapper. I don't know, sometimes Nas, sometimes Common, sometimes a Portuguese rapper. Like now, I was writing this thing that I write for the kids where at the place that I work, and I remember a verse from a rapper, a girl named Minda Guevara, and I was thinking, oh, I'm gonna write this, but then maybe this is, I don't know if this is good, because she said that they're gonna think I'm stealing the verse about her, and you have to be careful about that. It's funny, but I'm always thinking about that. Maybe the rap is always my guide to write other types of writing, right? I don't know if yes, I want to say that.
Igualdade é uma ilusão. Igualdade é uma ilusão. Liberdade é só uma vaga sensação. Se tudo incendiar não é acidente, é fogo posto. Calvária não dar é algo que eu não estou disposto. Escapei a muitos, mas a muitos mais ataques eu estou exposto. Sou filho de imigração e sempre pagar as caro imposto. Viver tem que enfrentar as investidas do exército oposto. Mas brother, eu não me rendo como eles tinham suposto. Intrigas ficam com medo, vergonha ou desgosto. Ou pensam que se virarem para o outro lado sobre um posto. Olham de cima para baixo, mas eu derrubo estes gigantes com um encosto. E passo a ter de olhar de baixo para cima para o ódio. E orgulho em ser como eu sou, espécies no meu rosto. Um cabelo nos meus lábios, na minha pele e na cultura enraizada dentro de mim. Eu tenho muito gosto e isto ninguém me tira. Para todo o FTP que me tem na mira, por pensar que eu estou neste país, ocupar o seu lugar, Joe, FTP atira. Vou continuar para ti aqui, por mais que o racismo me vira. Guerra é guerra, só que enquanto eu disparo rimos, eles disparam drogas, armas, doenças, crimes seguidos de sentenças, trabalho duro sem recompensas, verbais e físicas, todo tipo de ofensas, extermínio da cultura e das crenças, atrocidades imensas, que apanha brothers em cheio e levo a perto das censas. São merdas intensas, que mantém a minha relação com este povo muito tensas, mesmo muito densas, mesmo muito densas. Igualdade é uma ilusão, liberdade é só uma vaga sensação. Cordões inteiros marcham rumo à nossa posição. Retaliação não é a melhor solução, mas é melhor que esta situação. Igualdade é uma ilusão. Igualdade é uma ilusão. Liberdade é só uma vaga sensação. Liberdade é só uma vaga sensação. Cordões inteiros marcham rumo à nossa posição. Retaliação não é a melhor solução.
Moses, I pulled the carpet off your feet.
I didn't want to interrupt you. The beat was beautiful.
Yes, but please tell us.
So I'm going to read now an excerpt from Preto, Muito, Português by Telma Tvon. My brother listens to rap a lot. Initially, he only heard American rap, gangster rap. He listened to rap from singers who told other people's lives as if they were their own. He listened to a lot of rap that, should ever my mother hear it, she would get on her knees and pray. And pray for forgiveness, as those lyrics would give origin to a revolution within all of us. Well, at least the young misfits. I confess that in the past, it did not interest me. And sincerely, I did not even understand what they were saying. It was all very fast, and I had a hard time catching up. I once made the mistake of telling my brother, they're not singing, they're just saying words. He looked at me with his light brown eyes, and for a moment it looked as though a fuck would slip out of his mouth, but instead he remained silent. He was silent, but not for long, as my brother is not given to punishing others with uncomfortable silence. He lowered the volume of the computer and told me, "You should learn that music is expressed in many different ways. And haven't you noticed that whatever they say is always in accordance to the beat? Or how they flow through the words and say what's in their soul? Or how each and every one of them do so in their own original way? Should you have noticed such things, you would realize the crime of what you just said." Well, listen, Bujura, you used to like rock before, right? I mean, what did you think when people told you they don't sing, but instead they just scream? The human being is very strange. When you don't understand something, you tend to make it less, so you don't have to admit just how ignorant you are on the subject. Do you understand that? Try to listen to what they say. Their words are not so different from the reality we face here in Portugal. Their ancestors went there unintentionally, and they were born there unintentionally. We were born here without being consulted by our parents, who were forced by their need to come here. The problems they face, poverty, racism, and frustrated policemen who take their fears out on us and our parents, drugs that easily enter our communities to silence the fight for equality, envy, snitching, racism. Yes, don't be fooled, bro. We are under the illusion that we are better than others because we are mixed race and they are black. Precarious jobs. So much connects us to them that it seems that we were all brothers. But we are not. We're just ethnic minorities. I'm not just talking about black people, my brother. I'm talking about Latinos, Asians, Western white people who want to take over the world using the technique of William Lynch, divide and conquer. Divide and conquer is their thought, so we leave. We are so numb that when we wake up, we think that we are living someone else's life. I left my brother's room, shocked. I mean, literally shocked. I never realized that my brother thought about this type of subject in this way. Seriously, I always saw my brother as a rebel without cause who wanted to drink katembe against the wall, that his biggest concern was to buy the latest Nike sneakers and to braid those crazy zigzags that he insisted on showing on his head. Sadly, I realized that I didn't know my brother after all. My brother. I decided to start listening to some of the songs he heard. I didn't like all of the ones that I heard, but I found real poetry in the form of music. Even songs that were less deep now just made sense. They spoke a lot about the power of the message, and that's how I discovered the rapper Shulaj. I heard about Sam the Kid, Jag, Shag, and Halloween, and a few others. I listened to NGA and his Força Suprema, which I enjoyed a lot, but once again did not understand what they meant, though I remain a mega fan of the kid's charisma and perseverance. I redefined my rap with Shulaj. Shulaj is a Portuguese MC, a black Portuguese man. Just like my brothers and I, he is the son of Creoles and was born in Portugal. He speaks of the reality of social neighborhoods, the reality of African immigrants, survivors in the land of Camões. His Creole is better than ours. Much better. My brother is very hardworking, but I do not think he is successful in conquering his creolity. The first song I heard was called Equality is an Illusion. For several days I listened to that song as if life had simply put on pause, as if I could only listen that song on my MP3 over and over again. I drank and consumed all the words. I felt all the words as if they were a curse materialized in blessing. The blessing of my life, the curse of my parents. Or my parents' blessing and my curse. Shulaj told me, Equality is an illusion. Freedom is just a vague sensation. Entire platoons march towards our position. Retaliation is not the best solution, but it is better than this situation. And it was not a vague sensation that threw me for the certainty that my life was being lived without me being the one to live it fully.
As you notice, usually I play a song after reading, but somehow after listening to Telma talking, it just made sense to
It fits.
go with a song, you know,
It fits.
like
It's totally.
rap a little, you know, improvise a little. So, our next guest, as you might know, is also Angolan. She's amazing, and she's broadcasting from the middle of Alentejo.
My name is Yara Monteiro. I was born in Angola, and today I consider myself a writer. I published my first novel, Essa Dama Bate Bué, in 2018. I've been writing since I was a young kid, but due to life constraints, I decided to follow what can I consider a traditional path. So I was working 15 years in human resources in several parts of the globe, including Angola. And why Angola? Even though if I was raised in Portugal, and this is a long story, important to share with you guys to understand a little bit the story of the country that I should have started for. So when I was born in Angola in 1979, a civil war was happening. Therefore, my family, my mother's side's family, had to flee to Portugal in order to escape. So I was raised in Portugal. And when the civil war got to an end, I decided it was a good time to go back and reconnect with my roots. So I went back to Angola in 2005 and remained in the country for 5 years, working for one of the biggest oil companies, and of course, enjoying the good Angolan, special Luanda nightlife. There's a lot to tell about it. Part of my experience during those years in Angola was a source of inspiration to write my first novel, Essa Dama Bate Bué. It's going to be soon published in English. We don't still have a title, but maybe you could translate something like, I rock, but I'm not made of stone, sorry. So this is the story of Victoria, a young girl like me, that decides to go back to Angola in the early century. The mode for a trip is to go look for a mother, ex-soldier of the Civil War. So basically she arrives in a city, in a country that where she born, but she was a foreign. A little bit like me when I landed in my own country. The land didn't recognize me, and I also didn't recognize the land. So basically, we had to fall in love with a few fights and get to know each other. So the story of my book is really a self-discovery book, and it's a great way for you guys to learn and understand a little bit of the dynamics of living in an amazing but chaotic city as Luanda, with I have like as well a love and hate relationship for several reasons. When you get to know my book in private, you will find from chapter to chapter references to musics. You're gonna find references to rap musics, to traditional Angolan musics, and of course to Kuduro. The passage that I decide to share with you, it's very close to my heart because it really translates the first impression that I had, and also Victoria, even though I always like to say this is a fictional novel. But okay, based, as I said before, on my experience in Luanda, this passage really translates what I observed when I arrived in the city. So you can get familiar with Victoria, this young woman that arrives in Luanda. It is a day with heavy rain. So the city, it's quiet. And after the heavy rain, she's in the car with Rumena, the auntie that goes pick her up at the airport. And when the rain stops, the city comes to life. And this is very common in a urban city like Luanda. You cannot go around without listening to music, especially the taxi drivers. So all taxi drivers, the first impression that I had was that they were MCs, because they were singing, because for me it looked like they were even really with the mic calling people to go somewhere. So they used to call aeroporto, aeroporto, airport, airport, mutamba, mutamba. And this is like locations that the taxi drivers had to advert to people so they can know where they're going. And in the meantime, they are even bumping on the doors. So this passage, you can understand what is the body, or you can link the body of a city life with the body of the music of Kuduro, because they are both associated. And it is beautiful in the sense, at least beautiful for me, in the sense that it really brings to life what it is lived in Luanda, because noise is not only noise, or what can be interpreted as noise. It's not only noise. As a message, it is music, it is a meaning. And all these individual taxi drivers, they are almost competing with each other, because also they are calling people. So they have to use different beats, different words, different rhythms in order to bring attention of the people. And it is beautiful to listen and beautiful to see, but also very overwhelming. So it was, this passage really translates what I felt when I first drove in a car from the airport to the Luanda Bay. Cannot dissociate music from literature. I have to say that my dream would be like a writer and a musician like Calaf, but not everyone has that luck. So the maximum that I can do is to use music as an inspiration and as a way to trigger me emotions. So normally when I write, I listen music according to what I am writing. So if I want to write about a specific emotion, yeah, or if I want to bring some sort of energy to a specific scene, I tend to write listening that type of vibe. Yeah. So for instance, if I want to write about a party, I write listening party music. If I want to write about depression or about emptiness, I tend to listen depressing music. And I even cry when I listen depressing music and write depressing scenes. But for me, it is important. It is very also important to listen to analogic music and to piano music that settles my mind, that it's always around. So it's really, for me, it's really about bringing through music the energy that I want to see in my writing. So I'm very eclectic. I can go from Kuduro to pop music to echo music that I recently discovered, or even to piano music, as I said. But music, it's always there. And sometimes I go to the point that the music can go into repeat, because it puts me in a flow, in a constant flow that helps me going through the writing. So it can even be a little bit of extans level.
Essa dama bate bué from Yara Monteiro. Unremittingly, the rain stings the ground and the roofs of cars. My hair gets flooded and curls right away. Romina's wig with smooth and blondish strands of hair looks unpenetrable. We rushed into the Range Rover. Romina takes money from her purse and waves bellboy away. She starts the car and wipes her round face with a scarf. The water rounds down her double chin. I don't need to talk. Romina speaks for both. She complains about the rain, the fading makeup, or the boisterous airport. With her large and voluminous hands, she cleans the fogged glass. The rings strangle her fingers. The sound, long, bright, pink-painted nails touching the glass follow the rattling of wooden bracelets. The rhythm created soothes my fears. I feel my body relaxing and my feet getting less numb. Slowly we leave the airport park. The city is anesthetized and silent. The rain had taken over off roads and sidewalks. When they pass, the cars create tiny waves, garbage basins, toys, and even a colorful parasol float in the muddy water. Under the roofs, people are protected by what appear to be items for sale. In miserable houses, young and old people use buckets of basins to remove the water that entered their yards. In the streets, one can distinguish the women who do not give up and face the harsh weather from those who no longer feel the suffering. The first ones carry the shoes in their hands, the wallets stuffed inside their blouse, their heads protected by plastic bag. The others walk as if they don't notice the strong raindrops piercing their skin. They continue to face what fate threw at them that day. For them, sun and rain are the same. I don't see men. I wonder if they run away from the rain. This city with rain is nothing but chaos, Romina explains. Does it always rain like this? Nothing average happens here, she laughs ironically, and continues. When the water drops from the sky is a flood. Like a caravel, we advance along the road. Romina doesn't follow in a straight line. These streets are minefields. Oh, Jesus. Are there mines in the city? I ask, scared. Calm down, girl. These are holes in the road. With rainfall, they become craters. Gotcha? Perfectly. Thinking the trip would take longer than expected, Romina introduces me to the city. That's Prenda. Be careful with those guys. And she points to the blue and white vans parked at the sidewalk. They can't drive, she warns. They just get in the way. Are they minibuses? Yeah, they're called condungeiros here. It's like a collective cab. Don't get in them. Why? They're for the people, Romina explains, differentiating us from them. Is it dangerous? You betcha. The rain is calming down and the silence is replaced by Luanda's beatbox. There are heavy horns, sirens, conversations, laughter, and sharp engines. It's the city improvising the rhymes of everyday life. Airport, airport, Mutamba, Mutamba, Sao Paulo, says the Condungeiros MC in freestyle. The intensity changes. Daily life is quickly narrated in the decibels of the Kuduros that compete among themselves. The metaphor of the urban body emerges. It abandons drowsiness, it vibrates aggressively and leaves for the struggle for survival. It's as if an onslaught of people and vehicles appeared in the gaps, in the walls or the ground cracks, to soon spread through the bumpy sidewalks and the road turned muddy by the rain. With children nestled on their backs, women appear with basins filled with colorful colors of fruits, vegetables, and beverage cans. They spread garments on the floor, improvise a stall, and sell what they have, hoping to win the day. Along the road, rows of men begin to stick to the cute cars. They sell paraphernalia you can find in a $1 shop. The pace of their military march is marked by the slowness of traffic. "Is your door locked?" Romena asks. "Now it is," I assured her, after verifying the door on my side is properly closed. "Damn, these guys are like a plague. Don't open the window too much." Scared, I avoid looking at them. I don't want to draw attention. On the road, the jeeps with their high wheels and massive structure are a contrast to the rattle traps nearby. The right of way derives from the hierarchy of social castes or from the insistence of the mob to pierce the road regime. We almost crash suddenly. Frightened, I shrink into my seat and protect my face with my arm. Romina can't avoid it and says, joking, "Calm down. Here nobody touches each other. It's like a dance, you see?" "But it's scary," I justify myself. "You get used to it." Romina doesn't get intimidated and keeps doing dangerous maneuvers. I just look around. The buildings are old and seem prostrate. Suspended in their windows are weak air conditioning boxes and satellite dishes. Their grilled gates and balconies seem unsurmountable. One lives inside the house, afraid of what lies outside. I see two children just in their underwear stirring in a puddle of water where garbage flows, the city's execration. Noticing my expression disfigured by agony and sadness, Romina sympathizes. "It hurts, right? What can we do? Seeing the same often gets the eye used to and the heart closed. It's horrifying." "You must speed up that feeling," she warns me. "How?" "By not looking. Don't think about it. If you go down that way in Luanda, you'll get depressed." "Pretend that I don't see?" "Yeah. You're not going to solve their problem." "We could try," I suggest. Given up trying to convince me, Romina tries to cheer me up by changing the subject. "Do you know the story of Rainha Ginga?" she asks me. My silence serves as an answer. "Only the queens of Portugal." Romina laughs.
A candonga é essas peças que vendem na praça, coisa muito cara.
That was Candonga by a band called Buraca Som Sistema. Plug myself. Well, this scene, I love this scene from Yara because it gives a portrait of Luanda exactly the way it is. Well, Luanda is a city that is constantly and evolving every day. I was listening to her and I was kind of, yeah, but this is like an old Luanda as well, but still the same, but slightly different. But I would like that Toti take us back to another Luanda when those stories about taxi drivers and the candongueiros, all these stories of how to commute from A to B in the city is such an important issue that since it's forever in Luanda. It's like, I think that's the biggest problem, traffic.
This one is called Chofer de Praça. Mandei parar carro de praça, ansioso em ver meu amor. Chofer de praça então reclamou quando eu lhe disse que meu bem morava no subúrbio. Tempo chuvoso no subúrbio não vou. Não vou partir meu popô só porque você quer dar show. Então implorei, pedi que me levasse, pois o meu amor não tem culpa de morar no subúrbio. E quanto à chuva, a chuva é obra da natureza. Então chofer, dominado por mim, na borracha puxou, atravessando a lagoa. Foi quando eu olhei pro relógio e lhe pedi que colasse o acelerador ao tapete. Então chofer, trombudo respondeu: se você quer ver seu amor, atravessa a lagoa a pé. Não vou partir não, o meu popô não vou partir não, só porque você quer dar show. Não vou partir, o meu popô não vou partir não, só porque você quer dar show. Então chofer, trombudo respondeu: se você quer ver seu amor, atravessa a lagoa a pé. Não vou partir o meu popô, não vou partir não, só porque você quer dar show.
Luís Visconde.
Luís Visconde.
Well, this is again a serious part of the show where I need to talk about myself. It's very hard to plug yourself. I can do that with others, but what I can say about this book I published a book called Também os brancos sabem dançar. Também os brancos sabem dançar. And translated goes like whites can dance too. And this book is not about the ability or the lack thereof for the white population to dance. There's nothing to do with that. It's inspired by a proverb, an Angolan proverb that says whites can sing as well, or can sing too. And basically the translation of that proverb says we shouldn't judge a book by its cover. This story narrates an episode that happens to me in 2008 when I was doing my first European tour, the biggest tour that we ever did. First time going to all the festivals that we grew up reading about. So we had like shows in Paris, in Spain, and of course Scandinavia. And the first show in Scandinavia was in Sweden, Gothenburg, and the last one from the tour was in Oslo. But I lost my passport in Paris. And I know that there are Africans looking at us and listen to this, and they know exactly what it means to lose a passport in a European capital. I was basically fucked. Yeah, like a wise man would cancel the tour, go home, fix the problem, and see another day. But that was our first tour, like, the tour that basically make you or break you. Yeah, so we fought so much to get to that position. And me, myself, like, an Angolan immigrant in Europe, suddenly on the verge to conquer Europe. How could I waste that opportunity? So, of course, I continued the journey. The band, I think we returned to Portugal. I managed to get my residence cards renewed and gave it to me. I pulled a lot of favors, but I did it. The band flew to Oslo, and I took the bus from Lisbon up to Oslo. Oh, sorry, first Gothenburg. I arrived in Gothenburg, incredible journey. I only got stopped once, in fact, on all this journey to Gothenburg. I got stopped in Cologne, somewhere there. Germans, They asked for my passport, and I told them, oh, it's in the bag. The guy looked at me, looked at my residence card, and he bought it, gave back my residence card, and I continued the journey. And then we got to Gothenburg, we gave the show. It was an amazing show. Like, yes, we did it, finally. We had our break. And then next day, I had to continue the journey. So I jumped on the bus straight to Oslo. On the way to Oslo, like right after we crossed the border, I got stopped. The police entered, and they asked for my passport. I used the same story. That's the problem. Do not repeat the same lie, because I was so maybe cocky or confident. I don't know. Like they were suspicious. I repeat the same story. Oh, my passport is in my bag. Here's my residence card. And look at residence card. Look at me. Residence card. Can you bring your passport, please? And the rest, Yara will tell. Sorry, who is reading my piece? Marta. Marta will tell. Sorry.
Também os brancos sabem dançar. From Calafe Palanga. I must have been totally lost in Bruna M's rhymes. I hadn't noticed the bus slow down and come to a stop in a lay-by, and amidst all this exuberant green. I hadn't noticed us cross the Idefjord that separated Sweden from Norway, going over the Svinesund Bridge, which built beside its neighbor, now rechristened the old Svinesund Bridge. I'd been looking forward to seeing it. I'd never been this far north before. We were 70 miles south of Oslo, so 120 miles north of Göteborg, where the previous night thousands of blonde-haired, cheery and unexpectedly up for its Swedes had assembled at the Way Out West Festival in the 137-hectare Slottsskogen Park, and gone bonkers to our cocktail of Kuduro, house, tropical techno, partying like it was the last August of their lives, or the day of the last judgment, and Luanda and Lisbon weren't so far or alien. The door opened, and 2 police officers came on board, both dressed in plain clothes but badges pinned to their chest. The men, tall and blonde in the way only Vikings can be, introduced himself to the passengers, first in Norwegian, then English. I don't remember his exact words, but I immediately began rehearsing the answers I'd prepared for any border agents I might meet on my 2,000-mile journey from Lisbon. I was traveling without a passport. I'd lost mine in a hotel in Paris a few weeks earlier. A total nightmare, because we'd had to cancel several gigs in the height of summer, and because disasters always bring a +1 to the party. I'm from Angola. If you're a regular Angolan citizen, the last thing in the world you want to do is lose your passport. I'd given anything to lose my phone, my suitcase full of clothes, my laptop, anything but my passport. Because that meant traveling back to Luanda, finding a fixer, paying the emergency tax, and praying to Kianda or Santifigenia to bless the computers at the Foreigners and Migration Service not to have a system crash. But now I was appealing to San Caleb of Axum, San Benedict the Moor, praying I'd not falter when my turn came to show my documents, praying my story would come out convincingly. It didn't. I showed the blonde guy my Portuguese residency card, and he looked at me with a great distrust. He asked to see my passport. I lied and said it was my suitcase. The female officer, a dark-haired woman who looked like a judo expert, came over to join us, having finished checking the other passengers. Evidently, I was the only person on board with a Dutch document. I was likely the first foreigner to ever try crossing that border with a residency card issued by the Portuguese foreigners on border service. The blonde guy, who could easily have been in the audience last night before, told me I have to get my passport. He instructed the bus driver to open the luggage compartment and accompanied me off the bus. As the 2 officers escorted me to my suitcase, I thought about starting again and telling the truth, that I didn't have a valid passport, that what I was about to show them had long since expired. Furthermore, have last been valid before Jonas Savimbi had breathed his final breath. It was so ravaged by time that nobody in their right mind could expect to travel across Europe using it. And furthermore, the picture on it looked more like a painting by the Dutch expressionist master Willem de Koning than it did a photograph of me. My legs were like jelly, but I affected the most assured pose I'd ever struck and handed over the passport, just like that, barefaced, or rotten-faced, as we say in Angola. My audacity, the responsibility of my very gesture must have sent alarm bells ringing in the 2 officers' head. Only a lunatic or a high-level criminal would dare to cross Europe by bus, by train, with documents as threadbare as this, and backed up by the cock and bull story that he was a musician in a Lisbon band with a gig to play at one of Europe's most iconic electronic music festivals that night. I wouldn't even have believed myself. They told me to gather up my belongings. We were going to the station to answer a few questions. I said nothing. I felt sweat forming on my brow, my mouth drying, my heart racing. I had no doubt that the slightest sudden movement would make me sick. We drove along in total silence, the 2 officers exchanging not a word. Again, I thought about trying to explain things, the sort of pleading for my freedom crossed with a telling of the truth, the whole truth. But what truth? Where to start? No one had asked me to go out into the world like some elder missionary spreading the gospel of Kuduro. How could I even explain or begin to explain what Kuduro even was? The officers were unlikely to take kindly to my version of the truth. If I'd started talking about Jean-Claude Van Damme's dancing, Muay Thai tournaments and Lisbon raves, mixing Belgium, Thailand, Portugal and Luanda in the same sentence, they'd have thought at the very least that I belonged to some kind of a criminal network operating on 3 continents. So I kept my mouth shut and looked out of the window. It might be the last chance to see Scandinavia. I tried to shut everything else out, so to lose myself in the greenery and think freely. Kuduro. Passport. Freedom. If I'm here, it's because I choose to be, I concluded. But my choice was also, in the final analysis, a product of my restricted movement. It took being caught at a border without proper documents for me to realize I'd always been a prisoner of sorts. Kuduro had been my passport to the world. Thanks to it, I traveled to places I'd never dreamed of visiting. But the chickens had come home to roost. I didn't need to hear the Norwegian police's verdict. My fate had been sealed the moment I set out on this journey. Whatever awaited me in that cell hardly mattered now. The will to plead my innocence drained out of me.
Abram alas e batam palas da maior cidade à menor senzala. Quando o cano das armas se cala, o Kuduro também fala, porque a voz tem mais poder que a bala. Nos combatentes, última linha, o Bruno M, séries, produções. Já respeita, né? Já respeita, né? Che, já respeita, né? Já respeita, né? Che, já respeita, né? Já respeita, né? Che, já respeita, né? Quem brinca com fogo se queima. Por os coisas de tira a teima. Puto bem capa grande a chavalo. Aqui eu pica, tu tiro estalo. Eu faço Kuduro e não me calo. Sente o ataque. Curti com DJ Pontiac. Quando eu canto a ferida Sara. Damas do valor de ação rara. Os combatentes, banda sagrada. Quem tentar vai levar pancada. Quem comanda aqui a quebrada. Alameda, tropa de brigada. Tudo M na batucada. Estão a tentar nos perseguir, mas não adianta, tu vais cair. Não guerrito, nos espanta a caça. Vem só curtir a nova dança. Quer gozar, és meu player. Vais curtir a dança da aldeia. Meu camponesa é esse na veia. Tira o stress, dança que o valor de merece. Não respeita é dos AS. Se queres cantar, cor é esse. O Mochidon, já respeita, né? Simoni, já respeita, né? Camponês, já respeita, né? Modern Boy, já respeita, né? O da igreja, já respeita, né? O Tuguice, já respeita, né? Morachid, já respeita, né? Os no bezerra, Deus no céu, a esse na terra. Os novatos pediram guerra, tropa Alameda vai da mangueira. Por Escócia, desejado, teu estatuto é cobiçado. O movimento tá controlado. Quando eu canto a ferida Sara, damas do valor de ação raras. Gosto do pong do pai Tara. Água rara, Alameda pisa na cara. Simoni, da chicote, na via tem leite mais forte. Vou cantar também no Don Quixote. A biala, bate pala, tropa Alameda comanda a guala. Assim senhora, sem demora, colobas voam de vassoura. Grupo cauíços com saliva, tropa Alameda grita viva. Cabachó, já respeita, né? Mampalo, já respeita, né? Agualusa, já respeita, né? Chiporte, já respeita, né? Zemac, já respeita, né? Dino Lenhão, já respeita, né? O Tilau, já respeita, né? Tidodó, já respeita, né? Dança no respeito.
Well, that's Kuduro. How could I explain this to a Norwegian man? It's impossible, you know? Finally, we get to our last guest of the evening. I made a little mistake in the beginning. Let me reveal it. Of course, you don't know it, but Ondjaki was broadcasting from Luanda, and our next guest is broadcasting from Mozambique.
Hello, My name is José Eduardo Agualusa. I was born in Angola, in the islands of Wambo. And well, I was a journalist and I'm a writer. And I'm living now in Mozambique Island, the Ilha de Mozambique, in the north of Mozambique, with my wife and my little daughter. A general theory of oblivion, in Portuguese is Teoria Geral do Esquecimento. It's a novel about xenophobia. It's a story of a Portuguese woman that goes to Angola just before the independence, and live in an apartment in a big building, and the war becomes just some months before the independence, and she was so afraid with all of that she built a wall that put apart his apartment for the rest of the building and the rest of the town. And so she stayed there for almost 30 years. And then she was saved by a very young boy. And so for me, it's a book, a novel about isolation, about xenophobia, about fear of the others. So it's very actual. And also about redemption. Well, this chapter in the book, it's about something that I really like. That it's about Luanda. Luanda, it's a very powerful place, full of people that come from different parts of the country, but also from other countries. And this energy that Luanda have, and it's a place with all kind of magic things can happen in a very natural way. So this passage, this chapter is about that. It's about how the absurd can install in the reality in a very natural way, and how the people lead with that. Music is very important for me for long time. First of all, I was a journalist. I was a cultural journalist, and during a lot of time I wrote about music. I interviewed musicians, and I also wrote about music, about shows, and so everything about music. And I also have a program in a radio station that broadcasts for all the African countries that speak Portuguese. It's a music and poetry program, and I do that program for more than 20 years now. So music is very important for me, and it's not a surprise that in my books there's a lot about music. It's not because I just decide that I'm writing about music. It just happens because music is in my life everywhere. So in my books that's for sure. That's a lot of music. And music is important for me, including when I'm writing. I write hearing music, a lot of African jazz and Latin jazz, music without words. But yes, it helps me a lot when I'm writing. It helps me to write.
I am going to read now an excerpt from A General Theory of Oblivion by José Eduardo Agualusa. Mysteries of Luanda. Little Chief enjoyed talking to the handicraft sellers. He would get lost down the dusty alleyways amid the wooden stalls, studying the Congolese fabrics, the 1,001 cloths showing sunsets and drums, the chokwe masks the craftsmen used to bury during the rainy months to make them look old. Sometimes he'd buy some object or other he didn't even like, just to prolong the conversation. Moved more by a spirit of solidarity than any thought of financial gain, he set up a company to produce and trade in handicrafts. He would imagine and design pieces in dark wood, which the craftsmen then undertook to replicate. He sold the objects at Luanda Airport and in small shops dedicated to so-called fair trade in Paris, London, and New York. He employed more than 20 craftsmen. One of the most successful pieces was the figure of a thinker, a popular figure of traditional Angolan statuary, with a gag over his mouth. The people named it Don't Think. One afternoon, Little Chief walked across the market without paying much attention to the sellers. He just smiled, nodding at anyone who greeted him. Papi Bolingo was beginning his show. Fofu was singing an old number by Orchestra Baobab. The bar was full. Seeing him arrive, one of the staff came over to him carrying a folding chair. He opened it up and the businessman sat down. People laughed, fascinated as Fofu moved in time with the rhythm, opening and closing his enormous mouth. Little Chief had watched the show many times. He knew that Papi Bolingo had worked in a circus in France during his years of exile. It was doubtless at that time that he discovered and developed his extraordinary skills as a ventriloquist, from which he now earned his living. Fofu talks, he would insist, laughing. Fofu sings. It's not me. I taught him his first words. He was very little. Then I taught him how to sing. Then we want to hear him singing a long way away from you. No chance. That's the one thing this guy won't do. He's such a shy little creature. Little Chief waited till the end of the show. People were on their way out, really excited, entranced by the miracle they had just witnessed. The businessman approached the performers. Congratulations. Better every time. Thanks. The hippo thanked him with his metallic voice, a dramatic baritone. We had a nice audience. Little Chief stroked his back. How are you getting along on your little farm then? Very well, Padrino. I've got loads of water and mud for rolling in. Papi Bolingo exploded into a bright laughter. His friend laughed with him. Fofu seemed to imitate them, shaking his head, stamping his thick feet on the little stage. The owner of the establishment, an old guerrilla fighter called Pedro Afonso, had lost his right leg when a landmine exploded. This had not robbed him of his love of dancing. To see him dance, you would not ever have guessed he wore a prosthesis. He came over when he heard the two friends laughing, tracing out some ornate rumba steps on the beaten earth floor. God invented music so poor people can be happy. He called for beers for the three of them. Let's drink to the happiness of the poor. Little Chief objected. And what about me? You? Ah, yes, I always forget you're rich. Here in our country, the first external sign of wealth is usually arrogance. You don't have any of that about you. The money hasn't gone to your head. Thanks. You know how I became rich? They say a bird came down from the sky, landed on your head, and spat out 2 diamonds. That's almost how it happened. I killed a pigeon to eat it, and I found 2 diamonds in the animal's crop. Just a few days ago, I learned whose diamonds they were. Little Chief was silent a moment, relishing his friend's amazement. The diamonds belonged to my neighbor, an old Portuguese lady. She lived in poverty for 20-something years, despite being rich. And she made me rich. Me, without knowing it. He told the story, taking time over the details, the twists and turns, inventing whatever he didn't know with talent and relish. Papi Bolingo wanted to know if the old lady had kept some diamonds. Yes, the businessman said. There had been 2 left, both so big that none of the pigeons wanted them. The Portuguese woman had offered them to a couple of Mukubal shepherds. It would seem she knew these Hicks. God knows how. Luanda does have its mysteries. True. True, Pedro Afonso agreed. Our capital is full of mysteries. I've seen things in this city that would be too much even in a dream.
Gente buscando em vão uma esperança, um sorriso, uma flor, uma palavra amiga, procurando agarrar hoje o tempo, falar de amor, de carinho e de paz, colher jasmim, fazer poesia com todas as letras, contar as estrelas, saudar a vida e ver os deuses iguais a mim. Colher jasmim, fazer poesia com todas as letras, contar as estrelas, saudar a vida e ver os deuses iguais a mim. Sou um jovem como tu, quero a vida ver sorrir, viajar, ter amigos, ver Luanda a florir, ver o pôr do sol, ver nosso país, tão lindo, tão lindo, tão lindo, inspirando emoções. Sou um jovem como tu, quero a vida ver sorrir, viajar, ter amigos, ver Luanda a florir, ver o pôr do sol, ver nosso país, tão lindo, tão lindo, tão lindo, tão lindo, tão lindo, inspirando emoções. Teresa Ana, minha senhora. Teresa Ana, minha senhora. Olha a laranja, minha senhora. Olha a laranja, minha senhora. Olha a tangerine, minha senhora. Tem uma boquinha docinha pras criancinhas. Com vitamina, com vitamina. E as quebra é conforme compra. Yelelele, yelele, yelele, yelele. Mas ao ver-te passar, nos teus lindos olhos olhar, a sombra da muleba sentar, tua voz ouvir, bons conselhos acatar. Mas a muleba já lá não está tão bem. Disseram que secou por não ter com quem confidenciar. Secou e tudo acabou. Mas a muleba já lá não está tão bem. Disseram que secou por não ter com quem confidenciar. Secou e tudo acabou. Teresa Ana, minha senhora. Teresa Ana, minha senhora. Olha a laranja, minha senhora. Olha a tangerine, minha senhora. Tem uma boquinha docinha as criancinhas. Com vitamina, com vitamina. E as quebra é conforme compra. Yelelelele, yelele, yelelelele, yelele. Quando li Jubiabá, me cri Antônio Balduino, meu primo que nunca o leu, ficou Zeca Camarão. Vamos os dois pro Machunga, vamos farrar toda noite, vamos levar duas moças para a praia da Rotunda. Zeca me ensina o caminho, sou Antônio Balduino. Oh, 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 oh. Sou Antônio Balduino e fomos farrar por aí. Zé Camarão na minha frente, nem verdeano se mete. Na frente Zé Camarão, que moça que ele levou, vai remexendo no samba, que nem a nega Rosenda. Eu pra aqui olhando o sol, que moça levou meu primo, cabrita que vira os olhos, meu primo rei do Moseque. Eu pra aqui olhando o sol, Zé Camarão a levou. Eu pra aqui a secar. Uou, 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 uou. Sou Antônio Balduino. Uou, 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 uou. Sou Antônio Balduino. Meu primo está segredando a Nossa Senhora da Ilha. Oh, que outra feiticeira, a moça o acompanhando. Zé Camarão aluvou, eu pra que açúcar. Uou, 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 uou. Sou Antônio Balduino. Uou, 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 uou. Sou Antônio Balduino. Kolonia weza ni korewe, kolonia weza ni korewe, mukanda watu ndoko poto, wo 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 wo. Kolonia weza ni korewe, kolonia weza ni korewe, mukanda watu ndoko poto, wo 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 wo. Lemba japiwe, makama vulu, koloni konga, fika wala ni wanga, fika wala ni wanga, fika wala ni wanga, fika wala ni wanga.
Can you explain a little bit what we, was like five songs?
About I think it was about 5 songs. All of them have something in common, which is the city of Luanda. Are stories. All of them are stories from Luanda. The first 2 songs I actually played were instrumental songs. The first one is Canto para Luanda, which means a song for Luanda. And is from a great guitarist, Luanda, watch being born there, which is Carlito Gera Dias. And the second one is inspired in that particular piece. I've made one called Kaluanda, which in Kimbundu and in national language means born or from the city of Luanda. And then this last one is in Kimbundu too, Kimbundu language. And it's a story about a ship, like a ship that sailed from Portugal and went with letters from people that were in Portugal, in Lisbon. And he says, Mukanda watundu kuputu, which means letters have come from Portugal. Putu is Portugal in Kimbundu. So that's stories from Luanda, basically, in a nutshell.
You played 2 more. You played Poema de Farra.
And I played Poema de Farra, that is a Ruminga song. And it's a special one because actually the theme of this encounter here is books born from songs. And actually that song was born from a book from another Angolan author. That's why it's a really special song. And the other one, it's Teresana from the late Valdemar Bastos, one of the greatest Angola have had.
We are approaching the end, but we won't leaving without, since I invite you guys. Thank you, Totti. Thank you, Moses. Thank you, Marta. So, since I'm the curator, I can make requests. So, I would love to hear you, Totti, playing 2 more. For specific reasons. One, Morro da Mayanga. Also for a song about Luanda, but also another song that somehow is not connected to Luanda, but maybe it is, but definitely a song, a poem that we learned in 4th grade. Mm-hmm. That was the first poem we basically serenade to the girls. I think every girl born in the 70s and the 80s in Angola heard a boy reciting that song.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a poem that introduced us poetry. And those poets were so important for the formation of our literary identity and the stories and what they brought, which is Namoro. I think we can start with
Namoro
Namoro.
is Luanda too, because he says about the Rua da Missão, the
Exactly.
Mission Street.
Yeah.
Actually, that all that places like the Morro da Samba is all in they're all in Luanda.
Violence so January, like
yeah.
definitely. So I think we can start with Namoro and then Morro da Maianga.
Okay.
Folklore.
Mandei-lhe uma carta em papel perfumado, com letra bonita eu disse que ela tinha um sorriso luminoso, tão quente e gaiato, como o sol de novembro brincando de artista. Nas acácias floridas, espalhando diamantes na fimbria do mar e dando calor ao sumo das mangas. Sua pele macia era suma uma, sua pele macia da cor do jambo, cheirando a rosa, cheirando a rosa. Sua pele macia guardava as doçuras de um corpo rijo, tão rijo e tão doce, como uma poque. Seus seios laranja, laranja dolorosa, seus dentes marfim. Mandei-lhe essa carta e ela disse que não. Mandei-lhe um cartão que o amigo maninho tipografou. Por ti sofre o meu coração, num canto sim, no outro canto não. E ela o canto do não dobrou. Mandei-lhe um recado pela Zefa do 7, pedindo, rogando de joelhos no chão. Pela Senhora do Carmo, pela Santa Ifigênia, dessa aventura do seu namoro. Ela disse que não. Levei a voz chica, quimbanda de fama, areia da marca que o seu pé deixou, para que fizesse um feitiço forte e seguro e nela nascesse um amor como o meu. O feitiço falhou. Esperei a de tarde à porta da fábrica, ofertei-lhe um colar e um anel. Paguei-lhe doces na calçada da missão. Sentamos num banco do largo da estátua. Afaguei-lhe as mãos, falei-lhe de amor. Ela disse que não. Andei barbado, sujo e descalço, como um monangamba. Perguntaram por mim, ai, não viu? Não viu Benjamin? E perdido me deram no morro da samba. Para me distrair, levaram-me ao baile do seu Januário. E ela lá estava num canto a rir, contando o meu caso às moças mais lindas do bairro operário. Tocaram uma rumba, dancei com ela e num passo maluco voamos na sala, qual uma estrela riscando o céu. E a malta gritou, aí Benjamin. Olhei-a nos olhos, sorriu pra mim, pedi-lhe um beijo e ela disse que sim. That's a hard story. Let's go. Noites de luar no morro da Maianga, andar no ar uma canção de roda. Laia, laia, laia. Noites de luar no morro da Maianga, andar no ar uma canção de roda. Oh. Banana podre não tem fortuna, frutata, frutata. Banana podre não tem fortuna, frutata, frutata. Entra aqui, sai ali, frutata, frutata. Entra aqui, sai ali, frutata, frutata. Jovens namorando nos quintais de madeira, velhas falando conversas antigas, sentadas na esteira. Jovens embebedando-se nas tabernas e os imigrados das ilhas como meu pai. Os imigrados das ilhas com sal do mar nos cabelos. Os imigrados das ilhas que falam de bruxedos e sereias e tocam violão e puxam faca nas brigas. Oh, namoro de moças sem cuidado, oh, ingenuidade das histórias infantis, oh, histórias de velhas, proletários esquecendo-se nas tascas, os imigrantes que puxam faca nas brigas e os sons do violão, os cânticos da missão. Os homens, os homens, os homens, as tragédias dos homens. Os homens, os homens, os homens, a tragédia dos homens.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Literature House. Thank you so much for having us. I hope you guys enjoyed. It was a true pleasure. Again, thank you, Toti, Moses, Marta. Thank you for the patience. Intercontinental African Book Festival. We're coming in May, hopefully, if everything is okay. It's been a journey, quite a journey. I hope 2021 is more generous to all of us. We need more heart. We need hugs. God damn it. We need kisses and dancing together. Please, be kind to yourself. Be kind and love one another. Thank you so much.